In this video, I'm going to talk about the importance of blocking out the noise, especially when you're trying to compete in a sport and trying to absolutely dominate and become a champion and win. And I'm going to basically explain how the top guys in basically any industry, whether it be sports, business, anything, whether it be Ryan Dungey, Ricky Carmichael, Jeremy McGrath, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Alex Hormozi, Steve Jobs, like any of these guys, how they blocked out the noise. And it's very important to understand the right way to do this, because if you do it the wrong way, you'll be blocking out everything and then you'll grow super, super slow. But regardless, that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. If you don't know me, I'm Logan Lesser, a national motocross racer, having won over 15 state championships and an amateur national championship. I'm an extreme sports athlete and ran a marketing agency for over 4 years, growing it to $30,000 a month. And while doing so, was able to travel the world living in Cape Town, South Africa, part-time throughout the past few years. And I've spent nearly $50,000 on mentors, coaches, courses, and education, learning from the best of the best in business, fitness, mindset, racing, and so on. Now I'm sharing what I've learned and growing my community, the Champion Protocol, linked in the description below. So first off, what made me decide to make this video and how kind of the thought came to mind is that my little brother Colby had his regional this past weekend to qualify for Loretta Lynn's. He got one of his tickets and then just wasn't able to get the other ticket just because the weekend didn't go the way he wanted. You know, it happens. It happens to the best of the best. So, you know, it happens and he'll have another try at his next regional, and I'm more than confident he's going to get it done there. But regardless, one of the things that I mentioned in my message to him, because I sent him a text kind of breaking down some things and kind of helping him out a little bit, and this is after the race was finished and everything. Obviously, the emotions are high and all this stuff. One thing I told him was to block out the noise. And I was referring to like my mom, my dad, the other people around him, maybe even friends, like anybody else, like block it out. But what I mean is, because I don't want people to get the wrong idea when I say that, what I mean is block out the unnecessary noise and what people are saying that is literally just exactly that, noise. Like, it's useless. And what I'm referring to is, for example, when the parents or the people around you will just get like super emotional, like specifically in a situation like that where wasn't able to get the ticket, wasn't able to get it done, and things just didn't go the way that they hoped for the weekend. Like, the emotions are super high. Like, the parents can get super, especially in motocross, like motocrossers, you know how some parents, especially for some reason, like the 50 and 65 parents, like with the younger kids, they're the ones who are usually the craziest. Not all of them. So if that's you, like, I'm not saying all of you, but some of them. But regardless, like, gets super emotional and starts just yelling and saying all of these things in the heat of the moment, such as like, what the hell were you thinking? Like, why'd you do that? Like, you suck. Like, we should just quit at this point. Like, what are we even doing this for? Like, I'm gonna sell your bikes. Like, blah 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 blah. Like, all this stuff. That's all noise. Like, none of that is useful at all. And if you let that noise into your mind, because everything is inputs. Like, you got to be careful what you input into your mind and what you allow to change the way you think and what you decide to do. Like, that is one of the most important things ever, because you're getting all these inputs constantly every single day, even with this video right now. And my goal with this video is that the inputs that I give you allows you to improve and grow. Like, I'm hoping that the inputs I give you right now affects you in a positive way if you allow it to, and if you actually take action on it. However, if you allow negative inputs and things that are not going to benefit you, if you allow those to affect the actions you take and you react to it and you let it change you or affect you, that's where things can go wrong. And what I'm referring to is, for example, the negative noise of like, you suck, like, what were you thinking, we should just sell your bikes, like we should just quit at this point. If you were to allow those to affect you, then at that point you would basically be giving up. Like, you'd give up the racing, you'd give up what you're doing, you'd listen to all that negative noise and everything. So it's so important to block that out. And I said earlier to be careful with what I mean by that, because I'm not saying to block out everything. I'm not saying to block out everybody, because there's a very big difference between noise and, say, I guess you could say, like, signals or positive feedback noise and feedback. Because noise is all that crap that doesn't matter, that literally is just, like you suck, like what the hell were you thinking, like all that crap. But feedback is where somebody comes in, and that's what I was trying to do for my brother. And I was trying to be the feedback because I knew in that moment, like my parents, even himself, and the thoughts in his mind and the people around him, they were probably giving him a lot of noise. And I wanted to be the one to give him some feedback. So I was the one that was like calm through my texts and kind of giving him a logical based approach to be able to improve and get better and learn from this race instead of just leaving from it with a loss. Because like Conor McGregor said, he never loses. He either wins or learns. And that's kind of the perspective I wanted to give to Colby, is like, you can either actually lose from this race and not get anything from it, or you could simply look at it as an experience that you can learn from and figure out what went wrong so it doesn't happen again in the future. And that's what I was trying to do for him. So I was trying to give him feedback. Now, if he was to block out everything from everybody, then he wouldn't have allowed my feedback to come to him for him to be able to perceive the event in a more positive way and to be able to maybe learn from it and everything. So that's why it's important to be able to decipher between what's noise and what's feedback. But it's pretty easy to do that, to be honest. Like, it's not that difficult. So just think about that whenever you hear anybody telling you something, and just run it through kind of a filter in your mind of, is this noise or is this feedback? And don't let your ego get in the way and be like, oh, I don't want to listen to that guy. Like, he sucks, or I don't like him, blah, blah, blah. Like, I personally have taken on the belief that I can learn something from everyone. Like, I can learn at least something from every single person on the planet, but the only way I can do that is by having an open mind and thinking that way. And I also just make sure to have that filter running constantly of like, is this noise or is this feedback? Like, is this noise or is this value? Because yeah, I mean, I won't dig into that anymore because I think I already explained it pretty well and everything, but it's just really important to block out that noise and not allow it to affect you. And one thing that I told Colby that I think is really useful is that I was like, block out the noise, first of all, like, don't react to it. And when these people are coming at you with all this stuff and all this noise, like, you also don't want to react to it and be like, shut up. Like, I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's much better to just kind of stay calm and allow the noise to just, like, kind of that saying, in one ear, out the other. Just allow it to come at you. And then and what I told him is, I was like, once you've got some time to yourself and you're just by yourself, alone with your thoughts, then at that point, start to figure out and think back to what happened at the race. Like, what might have gone wrong? What could you have done to prepare better? What could you improve moving forward? What could you work on moving forward? Like, basically really actually analyze and think about it so that you can learn from the experience. And another important thing with this is that like, in the moment, he got all this noise, he got all this feedback. I can say that I was like that feedback in value portion. So after he gets all this and he filters out all the noise and he brought in the feedback and the value, once he kind of was on his own by himself, he could not only analyze from his perspective what went wrong and what he could improve on, but he could also analyze the feedback and value that he got that he thinks might actually be something that would be useful for him in order to grow, which maybe that's the texts and stuff that I sent. And then he can kind of take all of this data and actually use it to improve and learn so that those mistakes and everything didn't happen again. But one last point that I wanted to also mention is that, because I think that this was like really interesting to me and this was really valuable that I heard. If you don't know who Alex Hormozi is, by the way, he's sold, I think, multiple companies now. He's worth probably nearly $1 billion at this point. And he's one of, like, I have learned so much from this guy, especially on the mindset, mental aspect of things. Like, a lot of my mental frameworks and just belief systems and stuff I have actually gotten from him that have benefited me massively. But regardless, what I wanted to mention that he said recently was, he said that when he was writing his book, which he also, he makes about $1 million a month from his book sales alone. And I'm like, the reason I'm mentioning that is because his book is amazing. Like, I've read it and it's freaking unbelievable. Like, he did an amazing job with it. But what he said that was very interesting to me, which comes back to this whole, like, ignore the noise, but bring in the feedback and value, but also make sure to do it in the best way possible, is that when he was writing his book, he's obviously the expert in what he was writing it about. And it was on, like, business principles and all this stuff. But he's the expert with that, and he's writing it obviously from his knowledge and his experience, but he obviously gave it to other people who had credibility and who he trusted and everything, so that he gets some feedback from them and everything. However, what's very interesting is that whenever he got feedback from those people, like say they pointed out this particular like page or this chapter, and they're like, this, I thought that was good, but I think maybe you could add this or make these changes or whatever. What I thought was so interesting is that when he got that feedback, he actually kind of just disregarded what they said and what they recommended to him, and like what they thought that he should add or change or whatever. Like he kind of disregarded that, and instead he just looked at and he was like, okay, they pointed out and they gave me feedback on this particular chapter. I'm going to ignore like what they said, but I am going to pay attention and put some time and effort into that particular chapter, because clearly the fact that they even brought something up and gave me feedback means that there's something missing there. There's something wrong, or maybe something doesn't fully make sense and everything. So what I got from that is like, I believe it's very, very important to obviously learn from others, get feedback and everything, especially from those who are ahead of you. Like if somebody's done what you'd like to do, obviously like learn from them and and implement what they tell you and everything. Don't like disregard it. But there is something to be said about when you get feedback. It's kind of the concept of, which I learned this in a book I was reading recently, is a lot of times people will try to get information on what to think, but it's a lot more valuable to learn how to think. And basically that's exactly what Alex was doing, is that he got this feedback for his book in this particular section, but instead of approaching it in a way where he was basically being told what to think and what to change and what to add, what to do and everything, he instead looked at it and he decided to figure out how to approach it himself. And basically these people pointed out there's clearly a problem here, but he actually took it upon himself to figure out what that is, and he approached it from his own perspective and with his own knowledge and expertise and experience. And the reason I wanted to mention like that whole thing with Alex and stuff is because like when you're taking in all this noise and feedback and value and everything, I think it's important to block out the noise completely. But the feedback and value that you're taking in, it's important to not just necessarily like take it in and immediately go and do it and everything. Like even what I told my brother, like I would hope that he would listen to what I have to say, but then kind of think about it himself and decide what is best for him personally, like what he truly believes will help him moving forward and what he thinks isn't going to help him, or just what doesn't really what's not going to like help him grow or whatever, and kind of get rid of that, but also just take what I told him and try and implement and learn from it and everything, but still take it upon himself to figure out how he can grow. Like instead of just being told from me like, hey, Colby, do this, implement this, like this is how you should approach it, like blah blah blah. Instead, like I'm giving him my perspective from my experience and from learning through a lot of the stuff that he's currently going through. Like I've gone through all of it before, and he can basically take what I'm telling him and the feedback and value, and instead of looking at it as like, okay, that's what I need to do and that's what I need to think, he can instead look at it and be like, okay, that's an interesting perspective. He's got more experience in this particular area, and I'm gonna like look into this and potentially try it out, implement it, and then once I try it and implement it for myself, I can then figure out if that's something that works for me and if that's something that I believe helped me grow, or if maybe I need to do it in a different way, but kind of using that as a foundation. Hopefully that makes sense, but it's really just that concept of like, instead of what to think and being told what to do, what to think, all that stuff, it's kind of taking in that feedback and value, but actually thinking about it yourself and learning how to think and analyze stuff and be able to implement it in the best way that you can for yourself. So hopefully that wasn't like too deep and everything, and I know that was probably a bit of rambling and stuff, so hopefully that did make sense. But let me know in the comments if you got any questions or anything like that regarding that particular topic. But to summarize this video overall, and then I'll obviously end it and everything because I know it's getting long like most of my videos do, the biggest thing is just to block out the noise and don't allow the noise that's just useless and usually is coming at you with emotions involved, because that's when people say the things that they don't usually mean and that they'll eventually take back, and it's in the heat of the moment and all this stuff. Like, don't allow the noise to affect the way that you're thinking and what you decide to do, but make sure that you're able to filter out the noise and the actual feedback and value that could actually help you grow and move forward and learn from things. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe. Check out my community linked in the description below for racers and athletes if that's something you might be interested in joining. And then aside from that, I will see you in the next one. Thanks.